Go. All right, that'll work better. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining our call today. I think it's going to be a really interesting call. I want to thank Betsy, Michael, Tim, and the rest of the staff and student workforce development group for coming and sharing all their updates today. This is the strategy and policy facing call for December of CaRC, which is the Campus Research Computing Consortium. We're an organization of RCD professionals who are trying to advance the state of support for research across our campuses. The People Network is structured as a year-round virtual conference around a number of different tracks, including a data-focused track, researcher-facing, folks who actually support research, systems, of course. Emerging centers is talking about the challenges for new and emerging programs, and then this track, strategy and policy facing. If you want to get involved, we are always looking for new people. And in particular, most of the tracks are always interested in folks who would like to join their steering committees and help come up with cool ideas and talks for our different calls. So it's really lightweight. You can just come join a monthly meeting and help come up with ideas and speakers. There's also a bunch of working groups and things that you can join. The strategy and policy facing steering committee, which comes up with all these calls, includes everybody on here. I will note that this is my last call where I will be listed as the co-coordinator. I've been doing this for a couple of years now, and I'm stepping back. Amit is going to be taking on, and we're waiting to see who is going to step up and take over where I step back, but I'm sure someone will. I really appreciate all the work that these folks have done to put together our calls. We are not going to have a call in January because it is January 1st and most folks are going to be busy doing other things. But we will come back in February. We're still working on the details of that call, but we hope you'll join us then. Today, we've got a really interesting update from the RCD staff and student workforce development interest groups. One of the things that I hope to hear is just exactly how they structure. I never understand the extent to which they are one or two interest groups. And there's so much going on there from what I hear through back channels that I think it's going to be really exciting to hear everything that they're doing. So with that, I am going to turn it over to, I guess, Betsy. So take it away.
Thank you. Give me a second to make sure I'm doing this right. All right, here we go. Can you all see my screen? Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're at. Hopefully you're having a great day. It's a little cold here, so I'm a little grouchy. But today we're going to talk to you about the RCD staff and student workforce group and interest group, plus the mentoring working group that I'm part of. So I'm going to give an update on the working group, the mentoring working group that Elper and I head up, and then Michael will give us an update on the other stuff. Okay, this is not going to go well. It keeps asking. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the first thing up, the RCD staff and student workforce interest group, we wanted to just give a high level of what's going on there. So the focus of that interest group is really to attract RCD professionals. And really we're thinking about student to full-time practitioner and what involves in that kind of pipeline to grow this community. And we're in particular, we're really interested in thinking about staff onboarding, training materials, student development programs. And one activity out of that is this idea of this mentoring working group, which I'm going to talk a little bit about. The mentoring working group, the mission originally was to address mentorship at all levels in the RCD workforce, because as we all know, mentoring is part of the key to success for individuals, and mentoring is hard to get, and there's not a one-stop shop in our community that we could find when we started this initiative. So the scope is really to examine existing programs that are out there today. We were talking to groups like different groups across the community, including groups like EDUCAUSE. And in this first scope, we really wanted to deliver a directory of volunteer mentors and and then resources for that. So we wanted to list first, what resources are out there in the community, and we're going to be publishing these artifacts for everyone, and then to try to promote this mentor-mentee relationship. And we were doing this through a couple activities that we're going to show right now in our next slide. So we do have, so taking a step back, we took a survey this last year and we found out what do people want in a mentor and mentee kind of relationship? What kind of program are people looking for? And then again, I mentioned we're looking for what's out in our community. And so through that exploration, we found that there's not a lot of, again, a one-stop shop to do that. And so we started targeting communities like EDUCAUSE. And I'm assuming most of you are familiar with EDUCAUSE, and I'll reference that in a little bit. So we picked up what we met with the EDUCAUSE folks, and they have a group that is called the ID to ID. And this is just an example of the mentoring program we're thinking about for this proposal. So we do have a draft proposal. I have it listed here on my slide. Plus, you'll also notice I dropped it in the notes. Our team will welcome feedback. We are in the point of publishing this document and then meeting with EDUCAUSE early January. What we really want to do is start to get back and engage with them. And some of the feedback we got in our initial proposal was, what is mentorship? What would that really cover? And if we are to engage with a community like EDUCAUSE, would that cost, say, for example, because we want this to be student and staff focused. So would that cost a student to join if they're not part of a university that's already part of EDUCAUSE? And the answer to that is no. We think through one of this ID to ID group, there's not a paid membership. You don't have to be part of EDUCAUSE to be part of this mentor group. So we're really trying to attract students and then full-time practitioners. And also we wanted to encourage not only industry folks to be part of this community, but actually academia as well. So in the first part of January, we have our meeting. We're going to be setting up to talk with the EDUCAUSE folks to move the needle along. And we're looking to do a soft launch sometime late winter, so like think maybe January, February, and then maybe early March, that early launch. And we anticipate to put out lots and lots of communication based on this. And this is my call out to anyone that wants to participate in this group. We're looking for people to help. And one of the ideas we had is if you're not an experienced mentor, that's not a problem. There'll be training for you to participate. And if you're even early career and you're thinking, do I have a place that I could be a good mentor or start to be a mentor? We encourage everyone, because mentoring is just caring and having that relationship. And it's all about the training people to do a better, to train us to be better as part of this community. So with that, I'm going to I guess I'll pause for a second and see if there are any questions before I move on. And I apologize if I talk really fast, because when I get excited about things, I talk pretty fast. Okay, with that, I'm going to let Michael take it from there.
Sure. Thanks, Betsy. Betsy has shared with you about the mentoring working group. Now I'll talk more about the broader interest groups and workforce development. So Patrick unfortunately introduced us by asking the one question we can't answer, which is, are we one or two groups? And we struggle with that. So we have a staff-focused workforce development interest group that Tim Middlecoop and I lead. We have the student-focused workforce development interest group that Betsy and Brian Haymore lead. And we work together very closely. We have a joint call. So every month there's a single call at the same time on, I think it's the second Tuesday. And to some extent, we alternate between student-focused and staff-focused topics. Sometimes it's a joint topic that's really of interest to both staff and student workforce development. We work together. The four of us meet monthly to coordinate and plan the interest group's efforts, as well as meeting within our sort of subgroups on specific focuses as well. And I'll say we struggle a bit with whether we should be one or two interest groups. So it's a very timely question that Patrick brought up as we try to see what's the most effective answer given how closely we work together, and also how much overlap there is between development of students and staff and people who are trying to do both of them. We also balance between recording and open discussion. We try different formats. Sometimes we have presentations. We had one of those recently about people's experiences. Sometimes they're really discussions where we have a topic and we're collecting input from many people about what they do at their institutions. Sometimes we record more formal ones. Sometimes we don't record if we want just more open discussion or do a hybrid there. It's interesting to hear, Patrick, about your own plans with this group. We've been successful at leveraging the efforts from RCD Nexus Day that's happened on the day preceding PERC for the last several years. That's given us a lot of materials that we've been able to take back to the interest groups and turn into papers. There have been several examples of that. I'll share one. And as I said, we have a lot of different formats. We're not fixed on presentation versus discussion, but meaning what's most interesting and relevant to the topics at hand. Next slide, Betsy, please. Other direction, yeah. All right. And the interest group, because sort of how interest groups fit into CARC, which may also be up for discussion, there's a lot of flexibility and the ability to spin that off into other efforts. So that includes more formal things like the mentoring working group that Betsy and Alpa are leading, and Betsy is to share with us. They're very concrete updates as they've been working to spin up, an organized mentoring program. There's also shorter term efforts, paper writing sprints. We actually won the best short paper award on the workforce category at PERC this past year. That paper came out of building from Nexus Day efforts within the interest group, culminating in a smaller group getting together for a couple of weeks and writing a paper that we submitted. There's also been blog posts, so you might check out. We had just in time for PERC last year, we amalgamated some of what we discussed in a call, advice for getting the most out of a conference for using conferences for workforce development. It's a great guide if you're off to PERC or any other conference. It's not specific to anyone. We have found that having a successful call requires a lot of preparation, that we have a plan for what's being discussed. We've also, I think the student side piloted something last winter that we found very successful, where we have specific questions asked in advance in the document. So in certain of our sessions, when we get into the call, we have these questions in the document with spaces for everyone to answer each one. And we spend time in the call actually with everyone typing out answers while discussing, and maybe pick out some interesting ones people have questions about to discuss further, so that we have actually some written record that we can refer back to, share experiences, and have a clear idea for lots of people to be able to contribute. It also allows asynchronous participation if someone can't make the call, wants to follow up later and add in their own answers, maybe for something that could be turned into the paper, the blog post, anything else. Next slide, please. So following up on that, some of you probably were at Nexus Day this past July in Providence, and there were two tracks. But the people track looked at developing a list of resources for RCD professionals. For those of you who weren't there, basically, there's a lot of people getting together in groups. We split up to focus on different career phases or focuses, and looked at what resources exist now that are really helpful, trying to make a list of those and rate them by how valuable they are for people with different facings, using the standard CARC facings, how valuable they are for people in different roles, looking at early career, established, managers, communities. And the goal is to take that raw data we collected over Nexus Day and turn it into something sustainable and useful. And so right now, our big need is volunteer time and leadership to complete that. So we have the framework draft started. We have the initial data. We are looking for, like a person to lead that effort, to spearhead it and make it happen, and also some additional volunteer time. We do have some people from this group who are interested in contributing for sure. But it's an opportunity, as we're seeing all of you today, to advertise a bit more, see if anyone else who maybe wasn't thinking about it already is interested in participating or even leading that effort. And the idea is to create something that's sustainable, that's high quality vetted resources. So it's not just a list, but it's a list of things that are rated, and not just rated, but rated for a specific goal. I want to become more experienced at systems-facing tasks, or I'm trying to become a researcher-facing RCD professional. What are relevant resources ranked for that area to get into a career, to advance a career, to move in different directions, and to be able to build a curriculum from that. Next slide, please. And as I was saying, it's divided up among multiple dimensions. So this is what I'm referring to by audience. So pre-career and early career individuals, experienced individual contributors, people managing teams and organizations, looking at things on that scale, which may play in very well with a lot of what this strategy and policy-facing track addresses on a regular basis, and looking at communities, like how to help run CaRC, for example. And there are different types of resources ranked as either communities like CaRC, workshops, self-paced materials, reports, and more. Next slide, please. So just to wrap up, our interest groups, as we're reaching the end of the year, are looking at what our goals are for next year. And we're spending time this month, or this part of the year, looking at that, building on what we want to address in 2025. And one thing is we would like to get more involvement, more people attending our calls, participating in our efforts, and especially to increase the diversity of input and perspective. So it's not the same people each time, and not people with only certain institutional types, backgrounds, and more. One challenge we're facing, and hoping that our being here today can help address that, is sort of getting lost in the noise of CaRC activities. There's a lot going on within CaRC, many awesome groups with lots of different opportunities. We are concerned sometimes that we don't have the best visibility. People, even who are active in CaRC, may not be very aware that our interest group exists, that we're open to everyone. You don't have to formally join or anything. It's not a working group. You can come to one call. You just see a topic that you're interested in. You can start coming regularly. You can participate in some of these deliverables, like the papers in the past, like this resource catalog, things like that. And we're also looking at what products we can reasonably achieve in the next year or so. We have, as I mentioned, the RCD resource catalog as a kernel based on Nexus Day. We would need leadership and help to build on that. And we are looking more generally to gather input on directions. What topics are people interested in discussing and addressing, and having us develop resources to help them on? We will be having a breakout session at next week's CaRC holiday party. So we welcome any of you to join there and share your thoughts. But really, what we're looking to do today in the remaining half hour we have is to collect some of your thoughts on that. What workforce development topics would you like to discuss? Would you have something to share about? Do you need information about where our interest groups could be helpful in strengthening the CaRC community? And I think that is all for our slides. So now really we'd like to open it up to all of you to share your thoughts on that, about questions about the mentoring working group that Betsy and Alper have been working on, about the interest groups, thoughts of how we can be useful thinking about contributing to the development of the RCD workforce.
Thanks very much, Michael and Betsy. One thing I forgot to mention at the top that I'll interject now is, if for any reason you would like to add a comment or ask a question that you would prefer be sort of off the record, we can pause the recording. Just let me know if that's your preference. We generally like to keep the recording on for the discussion, since people who can't join us often benefit from this post-presentation discussion. So we'll leave it on unless you ask me to do otherwise. And with that, open it up to questions. Well, I'll jump in. I'm curious to know more about how far you've gotten in the discussions with EDUCAUSE. I know that they've got a mentoring program established, and I've heard good things about it. And is this designed to be inspired by that or in partnership with them? I'm just curious to know more about how that could emerge.
So we're anticipating to partner with EDUCAUSE because they have the whole platform to support. Patrick, I was looking through your notes in terms of the document, and one of the things they do really well is this mentoring training. So they have a whole program on how to train mentors, and then they also have this mentoring and mentee matching system that we can use. And in that whole infrastructure, they have things like the committee, the group the governance committee. So how do you governance around this, and how do you put out programs specific to our community? And so we've had a lot of conversation with them about what is CARC and what does it cover in terms of the types of people it might facilitate, attract. And so we're really hoping to leverage their platform so we're not having to build that whole infrastructure.
That makes a lot of sense. And that's really good news. I especially like some of the things you mentioned about sort of mentoring mentors. I think there's a lot of people who are used to coaching their teams, but a formal mentoring structure is really helpful to folks who are thinking about how to be more effective as a mentor. And I think that's a really nice idea. For others on the call, are there aspects of mentoring either for your staff or for yourselves that you think would be of value or that you're curious about?
Or do you have a great program that we could even, because again, we're all about borrowing, leveraging what's in the community, not reinventing. So if you have a great mentoring program or know of one additional one, it's certainly not too late for us to include that as part of our materials.
How many folks, Lauren?
I've got just an idea, but I know of a few campuses that just casually have had folks on site for shadowing and co-facilitation for facilitators in particular, and would be happy to recommend some of those folks without necessarily naming them in recording, if that might be useful. Because I know I personally feel I know a lot of people do that with facilitators, having that co-facilitation and on-site mentoring via a campus visit is really useful.
That would be amazing, Lauren. Thank you.
In one of my other hats on the career arcs work that we've been doing, something that came up again and again for the people that we interviewed, and as well when we did surveys, was the value that people got out of mentoring. What was interesting is we also heard from people who had a mismatch in mentorship and were deeply frustrated by it. And so it can be a really powerful impact on someone's career. But what you talked about in terms of appropriate matching and training and governance and things like that, I think will be really important.
And one of the things I've been recently thinking about and talking to our team about is so when you participate in conferences like PERC and SC, they have a whole mentoring protege mentoring program as well. And how do we lean into some of that? Because those are already community leaders that participate in that activity, at least those 2 times a year. But how do we extend that maybe throughout the entire year? And how do we actually complement those conferences with this kind of activity, maybe not replace it, but maybe complement it so that engagement can happen year round, just not at conference time. So that's another thing we've been really trying to be thoughtful about, because it does take a fair amount of people's time to be mentored and mentee, and we want to make sure we're being thoughtful of that time.
I'm curious, of the people on the call, how many of you have been mentors to someone? See a couple of hands. A lot of people who are off video.
Can we maybe qualify that a little bit too? Because I'm like, again, my work is with facilitators, and there are other folks in the room who have different backgrounds. But a lot of, I think, how some of us have probably trained some of our own employees includes mentorship. or there are interactions or like paired relationships we have with folks off of our campuses, right, that involve what could be considered mentoring. But are you looking for like hands raised of people who've participated in named mentoring
Yeah,
programs?
it's a really interesting question because I think you're right that the job of many of us in a manager role or something like that includes coaching of staff. I'm thinking more of formal mentoring programs, in part because I think one of the values of a mentor is someone who's got a perspective outside of your org. In some cases, they're often somebody who maybe in a different career phase than you. I think there's a value of peer coaches, obviously, but then also the mentorship. Part of the reason I was getting at it was to hear people's experiences of being a mentor. Matangi, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I did actually. So I just joined RIT about 4 weeks ago. So I'm fairly new to the institute, but also the fact that I've been in higher education for about a year and a half now. So come from another industry. And one of the things we did start is with our middle schoolers and high schoolers, we did a mentorship program when I was part of a biotech company and health insurance. And so we invited them, gave them shadowing opportunities, and throughout their 2 years or 3 years of schooling, we had a mentorship program that we developed where they would be, throughout their journey, they would have somebody to talk to about career advice, not just career counseling theoretically in the schools, but with somebody in the industry. And so even at RIT, we have, just like everybody else, we have student workers, but we also have, it's not officially mentoring, but we have the facilitators of our RC team paired with them so that they can, we are trying to create a mentorship program. That's why I was very interested in this topic that came up today. And I would love to volunteer as well.
Yay,
I love
that's a
it.
good outcome. No, and I appreciate you bringing that up. It reminds me of I had been remembering several mentoring programs I was in that were more formal, where they're the idea is you're meeting regularly to talk to somebody who's a staff member somewhere else and talking about their own professional growth and challenges. But there was a program at Berkeley when I was there for a while where we brought in kids from Oakland Tech, a local inner city tech high school, and just let them shadow folks for a couple of days. And some of that was addressing this issue that a lot of people don't know about RCD careers and what options there are for this. It never occurred to them you could work in academia, especially in the Bay Area. People think about going into industry. And while for some that's a great option, many others aren't that keen to go and develop the next piece of clickbait software. And so they like the idea of staying in academia and just introducing them to those roles. And I will say it's really rewarding, I think, and that's part of what I was getting at in terms of asking for people who'd been mentors. I always learned a lot from the people that I was mentoring, and I was amazed at how gratifying it is doing that. It's one of my favorite things to do on a volunteer basis. Just I don't know, you hear and you learn a lot, and you get the sense of actually helping out somebody across the community. I think if you haven't done it before, it's a really, really cool experience, and I would really encourage you to consider it. If there's others who have experiences, it'd be great to speak up.
Sorry, I just had one more thing to add. I think it was really important in our mentorship program that we have clear objectives. One of our objectives was to have more girls in technology in the STEM program, and another one was diversity, more African American population. And we actually worked towards that goal. And that to your point, it is so gratifying to see we actually increased the numbers in the Lansing School District in Michigan by about 20% for girls just over 3 years. So, I just wanted to share that if you have some clear objectives, that just, is extremely gratifying.
And can I just add, there's this misnomer that a mentee is usually early career. I just want to give a little bit of a story. I have a mentor that I've had for, it's going on 4 or 5 years now. And I am the mentee in this case. And I had a change in career recently, and it completely different aspect of the RCD world. And this mentor helped me step through that change through the entire process to understand how to navigate that. So when we talk about mentoring, it's not it's not always just the early career people that need the advice, need the help, need the uplifting. It's even mid to late career folks like myself that can really take advantage of these relationships to help in a community that's pretty tight knit. I just wanted to like make sure people were thinking like some folks on the call, they're like, well, I could only be in the role of a mentor, and that's absolutely not true at all.
Betsy, I'm glad to hear you say that actually, because I was thinking the same thing that you have a lot of programs where the mentee is a student, maybe always a student. Even like the PERC mentoring program is part of the PERC student program, or the SC mentoring program, I think is open to
So
early career people as well as proteges, but it's certainly mostly students. I've always been assigned students, and that may be what I've agreed to take on. Um, but there is a need for mentoring. Exactly, so, like you're in a career, how do you move to the next phase of that? And people are looking for mentors there, and it's maybe a different need. So I was wondering how you plan to recruit mentors or identify what different phases there are. Um, and part of that also, I think, is also convincing people to be mentors, and convincing people that they are able to be mentors. Because it's a tough thing to look at and say, wait, do I know enough to be a mentor? Because it's rather intimidating. You want to give your mentee a good experience. That's where mentor training comes in of
mhm.
how to be an effective mentor, which is often challenging. There's a lot of programs, even like the conferences, you just sort of say, yeah, I'll be a mentor. And then suddenly a student appears that you're supposed to talk to. It doesn't mean that you know what they need. And so having that opportunity that someone may be a mentor and mentee simultaneously.
Yeah, Michael, that's a great question. So part of our campaign for 25 is to really lean into the processes that EDUCAUSE has built into, again, this onboarding of how, so the first phase of it is to find sound, good mentors, because you really can't provide a mentee mentor program without the mentors there first. And so the first phase is to identify those folks within the community. And we really want to target across the CARC community. So data facing, system facing, research facing, and just a little pitch into this career arc. So as we're understanding, because we all move around in these facings, so understanding where people can mix and match in between those as well. And EDUCAUSE is a really nice formal process of getting people involved. And so we are building up a communication plan to start uh, reaching out to folks and then identifying what does it take to be a mentor, and then here are resources we're going to provide for you. So there'll be plenty of training that will again assist folks to understanding that. But yeah, you're totally right. And it's really about communication and identifying folks like everyone on this call.
Yeah, that may take individual pushes. I know there's a mentoring program on our campus I'm involved in right now. Well, there's technically two, although one is for me as a mentee, and they've never found me a mentor. I haven't been paired with anyone. There's another one in which I am a mentor, and I signed up for that one only because I knew the person running it and was asked, personally, will you please be a mentor for this program? And that probably makes a big difference that being someone going to you and saying, hey, will you be a mentor? You have this experience that would be relevant uh, to help people basically find the time to say yes among everything else they're doing and to feel like they have something to contribute. It looks like Maisie had a comment.
Yeah. I'm really enjoying the discussion, and I think some of the points that I had have already been expressed. I really like the idea of mentoring. I've really also enjoyed having mentors, and I did mentor some students when I was still a graduate student and when I was a postdoc. But in my current role, I would say one off there, and I've not really been mentoring in and done any formal mentoring program per se. But I like the idea. I just wonder, like, um, finding the time to engage, even though it's interesting and I want to do it. So I'm curious about how much time needs to be put in. I too was like to have mentoring because I am in the library, and so I support research computing from my role in the library by working with the team that manages the high performance computing systems here on our campus. So sometimes I feel like I'm on the outside. There are some things that I would like to learn about so the collaboration can be smoother. Like I know, it's great working with them, but then it's like a whole different dynamic, I would say, or professionalism that I think um, you know, I have benefited so much from coming to these calls, these calls every month, and I had a chance to go to PERC in July. So yeah, I'm interested. I would love to participate. I just not sure how much time I would need to put in. So if you can just give me an idea of how much is involved. Mhm.
Yes. So what we were seeing, again, this is just based on the existing mentoring group that exists in EDUCAUSE. The onboarding is a little bit of your time because we really want to be diligent about making sure you're successful as a mentor. So that onboarding of getting you to, are you equipped and do you feel confident to mentor takes a little bit of time. And we don't know exactly the full curriculum yet because we need to make sure it's tailored to our community. So that might take a couple hours a month, 3 hours a month. And then when you feel confident, then we release cohorts of mentors to be to be mentees. And then it's a matter of meeting with your so there'll be organized events for mentors and mentees to get together, and then there'll be informal. So it can really vary between, do you attend the organized events or do you just mentor on your own? So there's a couple ideas that we're having there. We'll have a much broader idea. If you'd please keep in contact with me, or Patrick, maybe the right thing to do is come back and give an update once we have that full curriculum built out so people can get a really good idea of what this looks like. I'm happy to do that. But I'm excited. I guess kind of pivoting just a little bit into the student and staff workforce. We support mentoring as an idea, but as the student and staff workforce team, do people on the call think that this theme is valuable? Do you think there should be a dedicated effort in our community to be targeting this student and staff workforce development? And what does that look like? And how can our team be engaged to have impact to help uplift your community, your organization in particular? I was just curious to see if anyone thinks it's valuable, invaluable. You won't hurt our feelings if, by the way, you say it's not valuable to us.
I think it's very valuable. It would be good to have materials, and also like myself, I think I know quite a lot, but I don't feel confident being a mentor. So going through this program, I think would help.
I can say, Betsy, that when we've run other workshops, in general, on the themes around supporting RCD, something that comes up again and again is this issue of having access to resources. People hear about, oh, there's this cool program at some institution. Maybe you could go talk to them. But having some resources like what Michael is describing, this curated set of annotated resources, and in some cases, my sense is what would also help are some narratives or maybe use case stories around those. So if you're describing how you set up a given program, or if you're describing a training of some sort, or whatever the resource is, to have a little bit of notes from people in the community to say, okay, I went through this, or we used this tool, or, I sent my staff here and it was really useful because this and this and this. People seem to really value, having that understanding of not just that it's available, but also, okay, somebody actually found it useful for X and Y. We've heard sometimes that people ask, Well, that might be great for a big school, but I've only got a couple of staff members, what can I use kind of thing. And so having some annotations about sort of what kind of institution used a given resource of some sort. I hear this again and again and again that people really want to have these resources. So I applaud your effort to put together that curated and annotated set of resources. I think it is really valuable. It's hard to get the volunteers. It's real work to do it. I've seen this in domain after domain after domain where people try to put together resource sets. They're incredibly valuable, but they take real work and they are hard to sustain because of that effort.
I guess that if most of you are from like institutions, I guess you always have your review with your folks each year, the things people need to learn each year. But there's also this idea of growth and enhancement. And in my experience, in the many years I've been leading and managing folks, there's not really great opportunities to help them grow without understanding what's going on in the community. So, for example, again, me pivoting to a new type of position, I really needed to understand data governance data, and that there's a whole learning curve and that development in terms of building my own workforce up was very overwhelming. And I really leaned into resources like CARC and the data facing community to build up some of those resources. So I'm interested, do most people feel like their current institution provides enough of that workforce development for their team, or is there a sweet spot in ideas of or even technologies and tools and concepts that you're seeing coming up that your institution or company is not going to keep up with, that our community can perhaps lean into resources like NSF NAIRS program that's really accelerating AI types of things? Do people find these type of topics interesting? Again, are Tim and Michael, Brian and I are wasting our energy on a thing that's already solved at the institution and company level? Like we really want this to be a robust conversation because we want to provide valuable resources.
I'll weigh in on that one. I'm Kyle. I'm actually at TCU. We're an emerging center. We just approved our strategic plan to really pursue and put um, the intent to have funding behind it. And what I'm seeing is that um, it's like the cart before the horse, or like, is it the chicken and the egg? Like, whenever you're at an early emerging center, no one knows what to do because the funding's not there, but there's also like, it's, um, you have to, for myself, I am performing job duties, doing facilitation, doing leadership, far outside the scope of what I actually am uh, paid by HR to do. It's that wonderful little line item, other duties as assigned, that seems to be spinning up an entire research institution. But getting some of those resources and establishing that what y'all are talking about, it's not a waste. It's almost, if getting the relationships in place so that we can say, hey, I know an expert to help us get started. Let me bring in this person. Like, I've already had Dr. Neiman from OU, Kissy from Baylor. They've come in and spoke to our some key people influential in our research, and just being able to continue that relationship. That's where I think the most value is, and it's not the resource on paper. It's the resource of experts that we can lean on to really be representative in those spaces. So it's not a waste. I was just thinking about, I need Amy Pond to come in and talk about Nair for us. Like, that's where I'm at.
So the other aspect to the student staff workforce is actually understanding your current abilities, skills and abilities within your organization. And one of the ideas, again, we've been kicking around is like, how do we help people in the community do that assessment for their own their own community, their own team. Because again, as technology changes, you don't really, if you're not keeping up with where your team is capable, the skills and abilities, their development in terms of the workforce and building out stronger skills, you know, recruiting younger, you know, the early career folks to fill a niche that you currently don't have. That's going to be a big challenge. And we're trying to maybe get a handle on like, how do we help communities assess what kind of workforce development is needed? And I don't know if that's an interesting topic or again, we're just brainstorming ideas. We're hoping people can maybe help us frame up some of this.
Betsy, when you did the survey, did you ask people about campus level mentoring programs?
Yes.
Okay, because
and they vary. So like so I think it was the Northwestern University of Chicago has an amazing mentoring program. Purdue, on the other hand, does not. I mean, they don't have anything. And we found is like actually most institutions have a web page that there is a mentoring program, but there's not much built around it. And the other thing we have found is we don't know if that was current or a problematic because of COVID, because once COVID hit, a lot of face-to-face mentoring went away. And what we have found in talking with people in this survey is for a lot of people that having that face-to-face mentoring was really important. That's why activities like PERC and SC, when these people get to meet each other, it really starts to build some of that trust. So we're trying to figure out, is this a hybrid program? Is this a, you know, we have to, maybe we wrap it around Nexus Day that you know, these folks actually get together and see and meet each other. So yeah, we've been thinking a lot about how institutionally and to be honest, I've been also talking to companies, big companies, on how they're doing it.
yeah, that's interesting. Do any of the campuses you talk to have mentoring programs that are more intentional about sort of the kind of work people are doing? Because there's value in mentoring people in a really different domain because you bring your ignorance to the discussion, which is helpful in terms of just asking lots of questions. But the other side of it is that in the ITLP program, we wanted to have a sub cohort of people doing research IT because the concerns are different from institutional or enterprise IT. And I'm curious whether you came across any programs that were kind of focused on research IT.
We did not. There wasn't one specific that stated. There was a lot of said that, like in general, like information technology, or the broader IT community. And that it's interesting you bring that up, Patrick, because my mentor doesn't work at Purdue and is not in research computing at all. So it was really, they're actually in the healthcare industry. So it was kind of interesting to get their take on my pivot. But again, if you get a good mentor, they don't, in my case, since where I'm at in my career, it was easier to hear, like, you know, pros, cons, how do you think about things, how do you evaluate things, which is more important to me at my career. But early career people need much more guidance, and you're absolutely right, it needs to be more focused on, if I wanted to grow from a system administrator to a data scientist, as an example, that career arc, because I always keep coming back to everyone on this call, if you haven't done some kind of career arc in your life, I would be shocked. But having people have that ability to understand those different sectors of our community is really important.
Well, I think maybe going along with that, most of the time when you're looking for a mentor you're looking for someone who's not your boss. If you have your boss already, sometimes you need someone who's outside your immediate organization. And if you're talking at the campus level, looking at other research IT, research computing professionals, that's probably someone who's on your immediate team or very close to that. So that maybe is where it can be so valuable to have, like in the mentoring program that Betsy's working on. You can get a research computing professional to talk to who's not on your campus and isn't your boss or someone you work with every day. Or if it is someone on your campus, it's probably going to be someone who's not in research computing. Because that's how you get that distance. I know some mentoring program I'm in on our campus now where my mentee is a postdoc. And I was a little nervous about doing that because I didn't actually do a postdoc myself after my PhD. And she has, an advisor, but part of the idea is to have someone who's not your advisor you can talk to about things that it doesn't mean you're having a problem with your advisor, but maybe you just need someone to talk to outside of that who's in a slightly different career, who has an external perspective and who you're not reporting to about, your research progress every week. So I would find it hard to have a single campus research IT mentoring program in most cases.
Yeah. Yeah. And you bring up a really interesting point because it reminds me that part of the experience of being a mentee is that you're pushed to engage with folks and you're pushed to build more relationships. And beyond having a formal mentor who can be a great resource, it helped me to be more intentional about building partnerships across campus. And one of I had a partner who was an associate dean in another area who was very much involved with a data science initiative on campus. And it wasn't so much that we had a mentoring relationship or even a peer coaching relationship, but we built this relationship where she understood the dynamics of faculty politics. And I understood a lot of other dynamics within computer science and things like that. And just, developing the confidence through mentorship, frankly, to go and build more relationships like that, I think is a really powerful practice that for me came out of the mentoring and peer coaching thing.
I think one of the biggest benefits I've gotten out of my relationship is this person really pushes me. So they don't let me phone it in. It's not like, so how did things go this month? Or we're very action oriented, which is good because I'm an action oriented person. And Patrick, we mentioned this matching. That's where the matching becomes so important because I need someone who could push me in the right way. And it's really forced me to introspect and think about things that are what are goals that I really want to achieve and what are things, what are achievable goals and what are stretch goals and what kind of community should I be thinking about and what skills do I not currently have? And those are daunting things to think about with people. And so this trust level really has to be there. And it takes a long time to build that trust.
It does. And there's so many things we could continue to talk about with this. We are at the top of the hour, and I know people will have follow-on meetings. Are there any closing comments, Michael or Betsy, that you want?
Yeah, I want to make one final plug, just to say, we're always looking for topics in the interest group. So if you have a workforce development topic that's really interesting to you right now because it's something you're trying to accomplish in your job, bring it to us. Suggest a topic. Help us organize a call around that. As an example, I'm in the process of starting to think about in our own group here at Georgia Tech, how to more effectively train our student employees. And that's going to be a big focus for me. And I'm planning that we'll have a call about that will help me figure out what to do with my own efforts here. So it's always a great opportunity. If you have a project, you can use the CaRC infrastructure, and if it's about workforce development, our interest group, to get advice, experiences, and more from colleagues at other institutions. So definitely, please feel free to reach out to us if you have ideas, join a call. We'd be happy to hear them.
And join the CaRC parade. Whether you come to our track or not, I would love to see everyone at the CaRC parade because it really does help kind of fill in some of these gaps for us.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I would say that I would echo those comments for any of the working groups. If there's anything that you think you want to do and you're not kind of scratching your head about how to approach it, look around and just ask. And you can also just email help@CaRC and or I forget I think that's the right email address, but there's a bunch that you can find on the website. Just reach out. There's always people who are happy to talk. With that, I do want to let people off the call since folks have got plenty ahead of them, I'm sure still. Thank you very much, Michael and Betsy. This was really, really interesting. I'm excited to see what's going to come out of this and the ongoing resources that the groups are developing. Thank you, everybody, for joining. For those who contributed as well, we appreciate your comments and questions. And we will see you all in February on this call and hopefully next week, as Betsy mentioned, at the end of the year party. join the Other People Network tracks and keep up with everything that's going on at CARC. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.